Yeah.
Okay, so now let's detour into the lane. We talked about this on the last time I was on. But let's detour into the lane of anxiety, of patterns and trauma, and talk about why people self-sabotage.
Yes.
People don't self-sabotage intentionally. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, today, I'm going to screw up my life.
Right.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drink myself on the ground. I'm going to cheat on my wife. I'm going to embezzle for my company. I'm going to lie to everybody about how I'm actually feeling. I'm going to stop taking my meds. I'm going to kick the dog. Like, nobody does that. What happens is people get triggered.
And they react.
And then they fall into old patterns. And so what happens, I believe, in relationships in particular, or jobs, where you're like, this time it's going to be different, is it's different for the first 3 to 6 months when it's novel and when you're intentional and when everything counts.
But then when you got to face yourself.
Then when it becomes like part of your life, you get lazy and you slip into old patterns. Or when the stakes get really high. Let's say you're somebody who had a parent die early, or your dad abandoned the family and you're scared to love somebody. And so you fall deeply for somebody. And then what gets triggered is this tremendous fear that they're going to leave.
Yeah.
Because that's your lived experience. And if you go back to what you did as a child to cope with that fear that somebody's going to leave, that's the exact pattern that you will repeat as an adult. The only way to end this, or to try to get your arms around it, is to attack it holistically. Because so much of this happens at the subconscious level, and it gets triggered first by your nervous system, and you're not even aware of it.
Right.
And so there's a tool that I talk about in this book called high-fiving your heart. Your heart, yep. So what you do, and I started doing this because I was having this incredible response from past trauma happen when the pandemic hit. So when the pandemic hit, I started waking up feeling like something was terribly wrong. And it would start in my ankles, and it would flood up my legs and go all the way up my body, and I would feel this wave come up. My immediate thought is, something's wrong. And my heart would start to race, and I'd feel this full-on like anxiety response. And I know what that is now. So I now know that the anxiety response of waking up, which so many people do, this is really actually very, very common.
People wake up anxious.
Yes, feeling like they're in trouble, or something's wrong, or something's about to go wrong.
Yeah, that's not good.
Well, if you grew up in a chaotic household.
That's normal.
Yep. Yeah. If you had a caregiver that gave you the silent treatment, or had mental illness, or had a drinking problem,
or
if there was abuse in your house, you did wake up.
Anxious.
Yeah, because your anxiety, by the way, was trying to protect you. It was putting you in a state of being alert so that you were ready in case something happened. But for a ton of us, Louis, we have lived our whole lives with a dysregulated nervous system. That's what I've come to learn during the pandemic. That I have literally lived since probably the 4th grade with my nervous system never truly resetting back to a calm, resting state. And so I started to wake up every morning in the pandemic, like so many people did. And I've always kind of had this sort of wake up and feeling like something's wrong. Like, Chris is mad. Like my first thing is like, Chris is already up, he's meditating, he's angry that I've slept 15 minutes longer than it. Like, it's so stupid. This is how we torture ourselves. But during the pandemic, it was like a full-on anxiety response. And so I started doing this thing where I would put my hands on my heart, like right in the center of my chest. I got big mitts just like you, so you can kind of hit the whole thing. Take a deep breath, and then I would say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. If you can say those things, in this moment it's true. You are okay. You are safe, and you are loved, whether you're waking up in a mansion or a homeless shelter. And what would happen as I was doing this, high-fiving my heart, is you're pressing on the vagus nerve. Like, that's what you're actually toning. That's the same thing that Wim Hof is teaching with the ice bath. You're toning your vagus nerve. And what the vagus nerve is, as you very well know, because you talk about it on the show, is it's the switch between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. fight or flight versus rest. So if you ever find yourself in a stressful state, give your heart a high five. Put your hands on your heart, go, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. Repeat it 111 times if you need to. What you'll feel is you'll feel your nervous system start to settle. You'll feel yourself come back into your body. You'll feel your mind slow down. And you will literally take control of your nervous system. It is unbelievable. And it's also really important because, in researching this book, I talked to, the acclaimed Dr. Judy Willis, who's a incredible neuroscientist. And she explained something that I never knew, but it makes a lot of sense. If your nervous system is on edge, it's in a alert state, you're dysregulated, it's impossible for your cognitive function of your brain to work. I can give you an example. If somebody were to bust in here with a gun and try to rob us, would you be able to do a math problem?
No.
No.
I'd be like, just thinking safety.
Yes, exactly.
Save my life.
I bet the majority of people actually walk around with a nervous system that is on edge like that, particularly post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And for me, the reason why, I've actually linked it all the way back. So when I was in the 4th grade, I was molested while I was sleeping by an older kid.
Wow.
And in the kind of array of things that can happen in terms of sexual abuse, mine was very tame.
Yeah.
Like, it was a one-time incident. It was a kid who was slightly older than me. It was confusing, not scary. I just possum, disassociated, don't even remember how it ended. And for a long time, I didn't even remember it. And then I remembered it when I was 28 years old. And I believe that the reason why I have always woken up in a state on edge is because of that incident.
Since the 4th grade?
Yes.
Wow.
And the thing is, Lewis, is that the morning's a trigger. If you have that stored in your body, something happened to you, something's wrong, because something was wrong, and you don't have the tools, and no kid does, to smooth out your nervous system and heal the trauma, that trauma lives in your body.
Yes.
And so I believe most self-sabotaging behavior that people continue to repeat is nothing but stored trauma and your best ability to cope with it when it was happening.
That's why we sabotage.
Yes. So I don't think it's intentional. I really don't. Like, even somebody who's diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, they don't know that they have that.
Right.
Like, they're not it's like such a programmed behavior. There's no, I'm going to go do the, I'm in love with this person. Let's go screw it up.
Right.
That's not what happens. And this is also why I'm telling you, I know I'm crazy passionate about this topic of this standing in front of the mirror and changing how you see yourself. If you don't get a hold of that story, I'm worthless, I'm unlovable, I screw everything up, I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough, nothing works out for me. If you don't change that and start cheering yourself forward, you will stay locked in these self-sabotaging patterns, because you will act in a way that you believe it subconsciously or unconsciously. I know, it's heavy.
Right.
Oh, sorry, keep sorry.
We live in the most amazing moment in time. So that thing that you have up here, whatever it may be, you want to use healthy eating to cure your diabetes, you want to figure out how to take care of the elders and start a new hospice center, you want to move to Africa and build a school, guess what? You could walk into a bookstore right now and buy at least 10 books written by credentialed experts on how the hell you do it. You could Google it, and you could probably find at least, 1,000 blogs documenting the step-by-step transformation that somebody else is already doing. You can find anybody online and cyberstalk them. You can just walk in their footsteps and just use the science of drafting. Follow what everyone else has done, because somebody else is already doing it. So why don't you have what you want? When you have all the information that you need, you have the contacts that you need, there are probably free tools online that allow you to start a business or join a group or do whatever the heck you want. It all comes down to one word. Shut the front door, you know what I'm talking about? The F-bomb. It's everywhere. You hear it all the time, and I honestly don't understand what the appeal is of the word. I mean, you don't sound smart when you say it. And it's really not expressing how you really feel. It's sort of a cheap, shot to take. And of course, I'm talking about the word fine. How you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, really? You are? Dragging around those extra 40 pounds? You're fine? Feeling like roommates with your spouse? And you're fine? You haven't had sex in 4 months? You're fine? Really? I don't think so. But see, here's the deal with saying that you're fine. It's actually genius. Because if you're fine, you don't have to do anything about it. But when you think about this word fine, it just makes me so angry. I mean, here we are at a conference about being alive, and you're going to describe the experience of being alive as fine? What a flimsy and feeble word. If you're crappy, say you're crappy. If you're amazing, say you're amazing. Tell the truth. And this not only goes for the social construct, oh, I don't want to burden you with the fact that I hate my life, or, hey, I'm amazing, but that would make you feel terrible. The bigger issue with fine is that you say it to yourself. That thing that you want, I guarantee you, you've convinced yourself that you're fine not having it. That's why you're not pushing yourself. It's the areas in your life where you've given up, where you've said, oh, I'm fine. My mom's never going to change, so I just can't have that conversation. I'm fine. We got to wait until the kids graduate before we get divorced, so we'll just sleep in separate bedrooms. I'm fine. I lost my job. I can barely pay my bills, but whatever. It's hard to get a job. And, one of the reasons why this word also just annoys me so much is scientists have calculated, oh yeah, I'm coming down. Scientists have calculated the odds of you being born. That's right. They've crunched the numbers. I see you up there. They have crunched the numbers on you. Yeah, no, you guys standing up, you want to sit down for this. They've crunched the numbers on you being born. And they took into account all of the wars and the natural disasters and the dinosaurs and everything else. And do you realize that the odds of you, yeah, right here, put your computer away, stand up for me, Doug. So the odds of Doug here, turn around, say hi to everybody. The odds, of Doug being born at the moment in time he was born to the parents you were born to with the DNA structure that you have, 1 in 400 trillion. Isn't that amazing?
I'm so lucky.
Yes. You're not fine, you're fantastic. You have life-changing ideas for a reason, and it's not to torture yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Christine was right when she said all of you could be on stage, because all of you, we're all in this category. 1 in 400 trillion. All day long, you have ideas that could change your life, that could change the world, that could change the way that you feel. And what do you do with them? Nothing. Oh, hopefully I won't moon you. You didn't pay for that.
So we got a cool question on Twitter from Langley in Nigeria, and it has to do with something that we've been hearing from a lot of you about, and that is imposter syndrome. Particularly for those of you that are running a small business, or those of you that have a side hustle that you're trying to turn into your full-time thing. Imposter syndrome is very real. Let's deal with it right now. Langley writes from Nigeria, I'm passionate about film and cinema, Mel. I tweet and I blog about it. People are inspired by what I write. But when I'm offered certain opportunities, I clench up and suddenly feel like an imposter who will mess up and be found. I'm 36, I'm single, in a paycheck to paycheck situation and feel like I have wasted many years due to overthinking, self-doubt, and never feeling good enough or ready. How can I overcome this? Well, you can't. You can't overcome the feelings that are rising up, Langley, but you can take action despite them. That's a very important distinction that I want each and every one of you to understand. The things that you're feeling, clenching up, feeling like you're not good enough, feeling like you're not ready, doubting yourself, kind of spending too much time thinking about how much time you've wasted, all that's normal that we all do. You cannot overcome those thoughts because they keep rising up and they've become a habit and it's sort of a pattern. So I don't want you to focus on the thoughts. I want you to focus on taking action, even though you doubt yourself. You are going to feel like an imposter until you push through that clenched up moment over and over and over again. And then suddenly, through action, Langley, you're going to see that you're not an imposter at all. You're actually the kind of person that pushes through and does what he or she says they are going to do. See, imposter syndrome grows and sticks around when you listen to it and when you keep thinking and when you freeze. The moment you take action, even though you feel like an imposter, you actually explode the syndrome. You kill it. You break it apart because you're not acting like an imposter. You're proving to yourself through the action that you know what you're doing. Now look, the feelings are going to take a while to catch up. The first 16 jobs that you do where you feel nervous, those nerves are going to be there with you the entire time. Feeling nervous is normal. Letting it stop you is a choice. I say this stuff all the time because this is what you're struggling with. If you suffer from imposter syndrome, it's not an issue of whether or not you have the skill. The problem is that you have a pattern of thinking in a way that stops you the moment you start to doubt yourself. If you want to be successful in business, if you truly want that side hustle to turn into your full-time thing, you have to learn how to let the feelings of doubt rise up, but take action anyway. You've got to learn to embrace the fact that you're gonna feel like an imposter, but you, my friend, are the kind of person that moves forward anyway. You're passionate about film and cinema. Awesome. Keep tweeting, keep blogging. When people write to you, when they hire you and you get that clenched up feeling, that's a great sign. It means you're about to do something really cool. That's when you're going to just recognize the feeling, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take action like the rock star film and cinema guy that you are. I hope that that helps, but the only thing that's going to help you with imposter syndrome is for you to not listen to it and take action anyway. There was this one morning where I walked into the bathroom and I was standing in my underwear brushing my teeth in front of the mirror, and I looked up at the mirror and my first thought was, ugh. I noticed that my jowls were starting to look like saddlebags on a pack horse at the Grand Canyon. And I had like these crazy lines by my eyes, and my neck was really like kind of saggy, and one boob was hanging lower than the other, and my gray hair was coming in. And as soon as I started kind of critiquing my thoughts, or my looks and appearance, then my mind, Rich, started going, fuck, I didn't get that email back to that person, and I got that presentation I need to do, and my God, did that speech just cancel again? What the fuck am I going to do? And I look down and the dog needs to be walked, and then I think, I got a Zoom call in 9 minutes. Like, I got to get my shit together. And before I knew it, my whole mood was low. I felt overwhelmed. I had taken myself down mentally. I just wanted somebody to walk in and be like, Mel, it's going to be okay. Like, you got this, girl. Like, it's lift your head up. You can handle this. I don't know what came over me, Rich. This is pathetic. But standing there in my underwear in front of my bathroom sink, I raised my hand and high-fived my reflection. And I cracked a smile because it's so fucking corny. I even thought of that guy, Stuart Smiley, from the SNL skit. So remember that? I'm nice, I'm kind, people like me. went on with my day. That was it.
Snapped a photo though.
No, not that one.
Oh, not that one. Not the first time.
And then I kept doing it. I did it probably for a week or two. And here's the weird thing about it. I started when I woke up after doing this high five your own reflection in the mirror thing. I actually started to feel like I was looking forward to it. And here's why. I've spent a lifetime just like you standing in front of the mirror. And what I realize now is that when I'm standing in front of a mirror, I'm either critiquing or picking myself apart, or I'm ignoring myself. And when you start to high five your own reflection, it starts to build a partnership within you, with yourself. When you walk into the bathroom and you see your reflection and you've been greeting it, it's like seeing another person. It's the strangest thing. You start to realize how often you fucking ignore or destroy yourself when you see yourself or beat yourself up. And here's what's also crazy. You have a lifetime positive association with high-fiving other people.
Sure.
As a runner, as a racer, you have gotten so many high fives, Rich. What does a high five say to you when somebody gives you one?
You feel seen, you feel appreciated, you feel energized by it, and it's an exchange of energy. It's not the same, and you talk about this in the book, it's not the same as like self-talk because there's a participation involved in it. There's like a communion aspect to it.
Yeah. And, if you think about it, you're so good at celebrating, seeing, and cheering for other people in your life. You plan birthday parties, you reach out to people when you're worried about them, you help out colleagues, you cheer for your favorite sports teams, you high-five people like Rich as they're running races past you, you buy people's merchandise, you do all kinds of stuff for other people, but nobody's taught you how to do it for yourself. In fact, the reason why it feels fucking weird to high-five your own reflection is because you've been taught to do the opposite.
Why is the default to just beat ourselves down like that? I mean, it is crazy. We would never treat anyone else in our lives, especially the people we care about, the way that we treat ourselves in terms of the self-talk or the narrative or the critique or the kind of harshness with which we, judge our appearances, our behavior, the way we, think back on things that we said the other day and just are horrified by our own selves. And I don't know if it's everybody, but it's most people.
Except for Buddhists. I mean, I think that they're like if you're a big practicing Buddhist, that's a monk.
Right.
That's like just
why can't the default be the good things though?
Well,
why is it wired that
why?
way?
There's cognitive bias. There's a bias towards negativity. And it's a protection mechanism that's a default from evolution, that if you remember the bad shit, you're more likely to spot it when it happens in the future.
So you can avoid it.
And here's where I think it begins. I believe my theory is that it begins two places. Either you, or that could be both actually, you either learned the pattern of beating yourself up because you had parents or caregivers that were hard on themselves or hard on you. And so as a child, you absorbed that pattern and you now repeat it and you don't even realize it. So those moments you're like, oh my God, I sound just like my dad or my mom. That is an example of a pattern that you've absorbed. So particularly for women, we've watched our mothers be critical about their appearance. We've watched our mothers ignore and criticize themselves in the mirror. And so we learn that from our caregivers. So that's one place. The second place that we learn it is when the drive in your life becomes fitting in. Fitting into groups in elementary, middle, high school, college, your neighborhood. That feels safe when you fit in. When you feel like you don't belong, you immediately go into a protection mechanism. And I believe a lot of the negative self-talk is a sorting hat type of mentality that we do to ourselves going, I can't be with those people. I can't be with those people. It's safe to be with those people. And you start to see yourself and the world around you as places where you belong and places where you don't. And part of the criticism, as fucked up as it sounds, that we engage in all the time is don't be too big, don't be too loud, don't show yourself too much, don't have blue hair, don't do this, other people won't like you. It starts as a way to protect yourself from being rejected, but the truth is you develop a habit of rejecting yourself.
Right. Meanwhile, you're further divorcing yourself from who you truly are because you're not giving yourself permission to be yourself. That gets sublimated in favor of fitting in and, accommodating other people and acclimating your behavior around what will be approved of.
Yes. So for me, I have clearly a lifetime of beating myself up and tearing myself down and regretting decisions that I made. And in the middle of stumbling through life, instead of being like, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, being like, you're really fucked up now, Mel. How does that help?
Right.
How does criticizing and being hard on yourself help?
Hey, everybody. So this is an amazing question from Alan. Alan's a 17-year-old guy who wants advice about friends. And he writes, I'm 17 and this has been going on since I was 12. When I'm with cooler or popular guys, I feel inferior and worthless, which affects me. And weirdly, I try so hard to impress them and be like them like a chameleon. I try to avoid them, but I feel left out. Whatever I do, I feel sad or useless. What can I do in order to overcome this? So Alan, this is a question and a problem that plagues all of us, and it would be a dream come true for me if I could help you figure this out by the time you hit 20, instead of suffering like I did. I literally only started to figure this out a couple years ago. You don't have to hang out with people you don't like. There's a pro-life tip for everybody. You don't have to. One of the things that is a massive indication that you're hanging out with the wrong group of people is that you don't feel comfortable being yourself. The second you try to be somebody else, or you feel like a chameleon just to fit in, you are trying to fit in with the wrong group. Relationships only work when you can be the real you. People thrive on energy. That's what drives connection. You're with people that make you wither and hide and feel insecure. You are with the wrong people. And I know in high school, friends are everything. Friends are more important than family. They define the social structure and pecking order in a high school. I totally get that. It's going to be like that for the rest of your life, believe it or not. If it's hard to be around people, you're with the wrong group of people. When relationships work, they work because they click, and the reason why they click is because you can be the real you. They don't make you feel inferior. You're making yourself feel inferior by hanging out with people and pretending you're not yourself. So every time you're hanging out with a group of people and you act like a chameleon, you're actually invalidating yourself, because your own actions are telling you you're not good enough to just be yourself around these people. So the only way to deal with this is either show up with that group of people and be your full self. And every time you think something inferior, just knock that thought out of your mind, say what you really believe, be interested in what you're really interested in. Or the easier route, honestly, drop the popular kids and find your people. Because I'm going to tell you something else that's true about life. People peak in high school, and you do not want to be one of them. You put priorities on things that don't matter, and that's what makes people popular, that they are good at the things that really don't matter in life when you get older. So look, if you feel like Alan does and you constantly find yourself changing or chasing people that you can't be yourself around, stop it. That's a terrible habit. You're a people pleaser, and that's the thing that you need to deal with. You need to find your people. And your people are the kind of people that the second you hang out with them, you don't feel like less of yourself, you feel like more of yourself. You don't feel like you gotta hide or be somebody else. You feel like you wanna express yourself and show up and be more of yourself. That's the indication that you have found your people. And promise me, Alan, when I tell you, the second you stop hanging out with these kids that make you feel like a chameleon and you start paying attention to the people that make you feel energized, happy, and alive, you will no longer be a chameleon, you will be yourself.
So, not great. It's not great that you're afraid of that, but so is it a specific situation? Who else can relate to that, by the way? Fear of embarrassing yourself. Yes. You know, interesting. It's also the fear of uncertainty that you're dealing with. When you say, I'm afraid to embarrass myself, what you're afraid of is the uncertainty of what happens if everything doesn't go according to plan. Does that feel right? So the bad news is this. Can I get the parents to raise their hands if they're at all still nervous about embarrassing themselves? Anyone? Can you look around at that? Yes. Yeah, just a few of us. And the thing is it never goes away. And the cool thing about that is if you're about to do something for the first time, chances are high that you might embarrass yourself. But what it means is if you're willing to be the kind of person that is willing to embarrass themselves, it means you're trying something new. It means you're going for it when everybody else sits on the sidelines. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do is that when you feel that tingling, like you're starting to hold yourself back because you start thinking about what all your friends are thinking about, that's a moment to go, oh, this is what that lady was talking about. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going for it. The thing that you guys also need to know is that I know that we parents harp on you in terms of how important your friends are, and we always say, oh, well, who cares what your friends think? The research shows that actually between now and the age of 25, your friends are the most important thing in your life in terms of defining who you are. And that also means that right now in your life, the fear of embarrassment, because you're trying to fit in, you're trying to find your squad, it's going to be bigger than ever. So if you can become the kind of person that's like, all right, here's the moment. Oh, I'm about to embarrass myself. Oh, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going. What you're going to find is your friends are going to start doing the same thing, and they're going to start to cheer for you because you're the one that they can count on to break the ice. You're the one that they can count on to go first. You're the one that they can count on to put his ideas out there. And it's like one of the coolest things that you could develop. You're teenagers, for crying out loud. You should embarrass yourselves. You should embarrass yourselves a ton. You should embarrass yourself in front of girls and guys. You should embarrass yourself when you're at work. You should 1,000% be doing things that make you nervous, that make you embarrassed, because it means you're trying new things. For crying out loud, do it before you have a mortgage to pay. From Angie, why is it so easy to fill out limiting beliefs, but almost paralyzing to figure out an alternative, think this, not that? How many of you are having trouble with this? It's very easy to see where you doubt yourself, but it's super hard to come up with the alternative thought that you're going to substitute. Well, the reason why it's hard is because you actually believe these thoughts. And these thoughts have become patterns, and they've become habits, and they've become so prevalent in your life that they're almost like the co-host of your life. If you think about it, you are the star of your life. But if the supporting actor is a limiting belief that constantly tells you that you're not good enough, or that you're not worthy, or that you'll never succeed, then it's no wonder that you believe it, because the co-star of your life is your limiting beliefs. And so it's not easy to change your limiting beliefs, but it is simple. And it begins with you identifying them and then substituting them. So the most, I think, effective way of beginning the process of teaching yourself how to identify a limiting belief and then come up with your own substitute positive belief as a way to change the negative pattern in your mind is to use the power of objectivity. So write down all your limiting beliefs. And I'm going to go through this in detail in just a second. Write down all your limiting beliefs. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Nothing works out for me. Nobody's going to love me. Whatever the fuck it is that you think that's bringing you down. And then you can ask yourself this. What would Mel say? If Mel were sitting here across from me, what would Mel say? Another thing you can do, you can write the opposite of what you're thinking. And you may not believe it. It's okay. Because what we're doing is training you in a new pattern. And one of the things that Angie asked is she wanted to know, what were my limiting beliefs? So yesterday we sent out this workbook, the Best Decade Ever Toolkit. It's in your email. If you go to the Facebook group, Best Decade Ever with Mel Robbins, it's also listed on the files. You'll find the download for this. Check your junk email if you didn't get it. But so my limiting beliefs. So I want to have the #1 talk show of the decade. And the #1 talk show of the decade right now seems to be Ellen. And so it's interesting because a lot of my limiting beliefs, I think, are provoked by the fact that I'm the newcomer in a space that I have huge dreams of making a mark in and dominating. So one of my limiting beliefs is someone's already done it. How many of you have that one? My dream has already been done. So my substitute thought, because this feels kind of true, doesn't it? Somebody's already done it. And then my substitute thought, the think this, not that, is, well, they haven't done it my way yet. It hasn't been done by me yet. Do you see what I mean? So somebody else has done it. Okay, I get it. It hasn't been done by me yet. It'll never happen. It'll never happen. How many of you have that limiting belief? It'll never happen. My substitute belief, it hasn't happened yet. So I'm acknowledging that it hasn't happened, but I'm adding on the yet as a way to keep my mind in the positive. It didn't happen last time, so it's not going to happen this time. How many of you have that one? Yeah. This is what I say. I wasn't ready then. I'm ready now. Because it didn't happen last time because I didn't know everything I know now. I'm ready now. I don't deserve it. How many of you have this limiting belief? I don't deserve it. My thought is, if I work hard, I'll earn it. Do you see that? So it flips from a statement where I'm bashing my self-worth, I don't deserve it, to a statement about putting in the effort. If I work hard, I'll earn it. Oh, I've got this story that I'm the bad news bears, that I'm literally like the person with the worst equipment, and I'm the underdog, and I'm underfunded, and why does it have to be so hard, and why does it seem so much easier for everybody else, and blah, 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 blah. And I flip that into, I love being underestimated, and I love being the underdog. In a very weird way, as much as it exhausts me, it also empowers me. Here's a specific limiting belief. How the fuck am I going to compete with Ellen? I can't compete with Ellen. Especially when she's been at it for 20 years. She has the budget of God and an army of people that are supporting her. I mean, there was something she did announced yesterday on social media that I was so like, oh, of course. And I was so jealous. She announced a partnership with Starbucks where she's encouraging people to pay for somebody's coffee using the Starbucks app behind them in line. And then take a video of it and upload it. And they're going to bring them on the show. And I was like, oh, will I ever get there? Will I ever get to do cool stuff like that? And the answer is yeah. She proves it's possible. And also, I can take the 10 years and be like, and in 20 years, I won't even recognize the cool stuff I'll be able to doing if I put in the work. So take that jealousy or somebody else or whatever and say it proves it's possible. Now put in the work. So those are some of my limiting beliefs, and that's how you can do it. And by the way, if you can't do that exercise successfully on your own, post in the Facebook group and tell people this is your limiting belief. Can somebody help you come up with a substitute positive belief so that you can think this, not that? Ask somebody in your life to help you. And then what you do is when you find yourself going down the route of that negative thought, it'll never happen. You're going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, use the 5-second rule to interrupt the negative belief. And then you are going to insert the positive belief. It hasn't happened yet. That's it. Just keep going. It's incredibly normal when you stop and pause and assess how you feel about your own life and the state of it. It's incredibly normal for you to rank it low, because most of us walk around with a very negative viewpoint about our own lives. That's number one. And that's a mindset and a perspective that we are going to change. Number two, one of the things that has helped me a lot when I get into moments in my life where I get present to disappointment, where I feel very sad, where I start to beat myself up over where I'm at in my life versus where I thought I would be. Specifically, what comes to mind is when I was facing bankruptcy and I was 40 years old and we, had 3 kids, and I thought I should be in a different place in my life, and thinking and judging my current state against where my thought I would be, it made me sink even lower. And so what you're experiencing is very normal. The fastest way to stop beating yourself up, the fastest way to stop feeling regret over where you're at in your life right now, is to literally say to yourself, I did the best I could. I did the best I could. Because guess what? If you could have done more, you would have. And so if you literally just accept where you are, you're not feeling connected, you're not where you wanted to be, you're disappointed with how your life has turned out up until this moment, that's okay. But the first thing that you need to do to free yourself of that negativity is to say, hey, if I was capable of doing more, I would have. I remember there was a moment in time where, this is a really stupid example, but there was a moment in time where a lot of our friends started buying bigger houses or joining private clubs, or they were able to take their families on very expensive vacations. And that was just something that was not a possibility for me and Chris at the time. And I remember spending years beating myself up, years comparing myself to the people that had nicer clothes, nicer cars, nicer watches, nicer vacations. And it wasn't until I said to myself, well, if I could have afforded those things, I would have bought them, maybe. If I could have afforded to join the club, I might have. I couldn't afford to do it. And there's a massive amount of freedom that comes when you just stop beating yourself up and you acknowledge that if you could have changed it sooner, you would have. But here's what's cool. Once you say that, now you can change it now. And that's what this program's about. So cool to feel the sadness, okay and normal to feel the disappointment, and then say to yourself, hey, I am where I am. If I could have done more, I would have. And now it's time to move on, because guess what? You can do more. You've signed up for this program. You're taking your life and the things that you want to change about it very seriously. And the skills that we're going to teach you are going to help you. They're going to help you free yourself from the mental jail. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you spend the next year, which many of you were going to, you were going to spend the next year telling yourself, my life sucks. I should have done something sooner. You are going to spiral in your own head as you beat yourself up over and over and over again. And that's got to stop. The reason why you haven't changed your life to date, you want to know why? It's because your mindset has blown. It's because you live up here. You don't live out in the world, you live up here. And up until this moment, up here has been a very negative place. And I guarantee you, if you were to put your own thoughts in someone else's mind, you know what you would say to me? Well, there's no way in hell Mary would lose that weight if she thought the things that I thought, because I'm constantly saying to myself, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not capable, I should have done it last year, why didn't I do this sooner? The more you think like that, the more stuck you're going to stay. And so that's why it's critical to acknowledge that the reason why you haven't changed sooner and the reason why your life is in the state that it's in is because of how you think. How you think is stopping you from taking action. You're convinced that you're not good enough. You're convinced that it's too late. You're convinced that other people are going to judge you. And I'm here to tell you it's total baloney. If you listen to people that tell you you're a mom, you don't know anything, you're a woman, you don't know anything about finance, then you're at fault. I don't listen to anybody who I wouldn't trade places with.
So
Let me say that again. I don't listen to anybody that gives me advice. Do you want to be him? Do you want to be your husband?
No.
Okay. Then let him have his opinion. Thank you. I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
And you could also say this. Instead of pointing out all the things that could go wrong, as my husband, it would be really amazing if you would help me think of all the things that could go right. But this is something you want to pursue. And what you have to be able to do is to communicate with your spouse. This is something that matters to me. And you either or you get on board and you help me figure out how to start doing this. And every time your husband says something negative, you tell him that's not allowed. See, we train people how to treat us. If you listen to that garbage, he's going to think that you actually want to hear it. He's going to be trained by you that I'm allowed to talk to you that way. No, he is not. In a project that matters to you, you have the right and you must say, do not point out the negative. From you, I need you to point out the positive. I've been married for 21 years. How I behaved in my year 1 through 5, totally different than how Chris and I behaved 21 years later. Your marriage grows. The way you speak to each other changes. You have to mature. You have to demand that as you're growing as a woman and a human being, that your spouse...
But consider you as so greedy or you
No.
trying to be some bitch or something?
No. No.
It's like, oh my God, you trying to be something or something? You know?
Aren't you something?
But it's okay for it to be something.
Of course it is.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, you know, I just not there in that way yet. So
It's up to you.
okay, so
Your husband is not going to bolster your self-confidence. You have to do it.
okay, so we just
You have to draw a line in the sand about how you are willing to be spoken to. You have to make a commitment to yourself that you're going to do this over the next 5 years.
Yes.
And you have to start looking at the positive, and every single day you got to push yourself to do one small thing forward.
Of that.
You start doing that in 1 month, you'll feel totally different. Your husband's going to kill me. When life suddenly changes and you feel like you have lost control and you start to feel stuck and powerless, how do you take control when you don't know where your life or the world or this moment is going? And here's the number one thing I want you to know. You don't need to know where this moment or where the world is going. You just need to know where you are going next. And one of the things that has happened, certainly in the pandemic, but it always happens when there's any kind of reckoning in your life, is that when you have something suddenly happen and your life is fundamentally changed, whether it's a death or somebody says, I don't love you anymore, or you're fired, or you find yourself with a scary health diagnosis, there is a line in the sand. There is a life before that happened and then a life after that moment happened. And that line in the sand, that reckoning that happens, and it happens for all of us, whether it's happening for you right now or it has happened in the past, I'm telling you, there is a gift inside of this, even the darkest moments, because every single sudden change in your life that makes you feel like you've lost control and you no longer know where you're going, it's like hitting the giant pause button. And if you lean into the moment, there is a chance for tremendous wisdom and growth. There are things that you can do right now in order to take control of where you're going, of what you're thinking about. And you can start to take this moment of change and you can use it to be able to take and make an intentional pivot in the direction that is meant for you next. And one of the things I want to say about this moment is, look, if you're losing loved ones, you are terrified, this has made you lose your job, you feel like you're in that moment where everything, you're falling off a cliff, you're trying to pack a parachute, you're grieving. And so you got to give yourself space to grieve the losses that you're feeling. And when you get a little bit of distance from the grieving and the waves of grief and fear that you're feeling start to space out. They don't ever leave you, but over time, those waves of, holy cow, and I don't want this, and I can't handle this, and why is this happening to me? Time will start to lessen those waves. You will gather your feet underneath you again, and you will absolutely be stronger and be a better version of yourself based on this incredible challenge that you're facing. And I can say that even though you may be facing a tough time, because if you think about your life, you've faced extraordinary challenges and there hasn't been a single one that hasn't made you a better and stronger version of yourself. And this moment will be no different. So I want you to understand that when you get out of the cycle of grief, this is an enormous reckoning, an enormous opportunity for you to hit the pause button and for you to start to ask yourself the question, what do I want my life to look like? Because I think too many of us are sitting here going, I can't wait for my life to get back to normal. I can't wait for this to end. I can't wait to things to go back to normal. And in any moment of reckoning, what happens is there's actually parts of your old life that you don't want to go back to. And there is a tremendous amount that you're learning in this moment that you need to pause and take in and say, okay, based on what I've just learned, based on my old life, when I look ahead to my new life, what is it that I want my new life to look like? This next chapter, I can turn to a blank page, I can take all this wisdom, all this resilience, all this strength, and I can write something new. That's what I want you to know. You don't need to know where the world or where everything is headed. You just need to know where you're going to head next. So you're in a relationship and you've spent the last couple months really working on yourself, right? You've been going to the gym, you've been reading all these incredible books, you got a gratitude journal. Maybe you're even about to launch your own business. And so you're growing and you're happy, and yet there's a major problem. And the problem is that the person that you're in love with, they're not interested in personal development at all. What do you do? What do you do when you're growing and the person that it might be the most important person in your life isn't growing with you? It's a huge problem, a huge problem. And I want to break it apart for you because this is not something that is going to get fixed overnight. And it's something that you can have a direct impact on. And it's also something that can become very serious. So I want you to pay attention. First of all, you got to understand, you cannot change somebody else. You can bitch at them, you can threaten them, you can guilt them, but at the end of the day, it is up to the person that you're with to decide whether or not he or she is going to change. That said, you can do things that influence whether or not they want to. And so the most important thing with personal development, now remember, what's the key word in personal development? It's personal, is you continue to do you. You continue to read the books. You continue to hang out with the people that inspire you. You continue to push your life forward. You continue to go to the gym. And the thing that you're going to do is you're going to share a lot with your partner. You're going to share about what you're learning. You're going to share about who you're hanging out with. You're going to share about all these cool distinctions and tools that you're learning. You're going to share about the things that scare you. You're going to open up in a way that impacts your relationship. The thing you're not going to do is you're not going to tell them they have to do it too. Because the second that you tell somebody to do something, they're going to say no. You may invite them, hey, I'm going to go hang out with so-and-so. You want to come? You can ask them if they'd be interested in reading things. You can ask them questions, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to tell them what to do because it's going to totally backfire. I remember in 1994 when I first met my husband, Chris, he was taking this personal development course, and I honest to God thought he had joined a cult. I mean, I literally was like, oh my God, I met the man of my dreams. Now the dude is like in a cult. And I remember going to his graduation for the weekend program, and everybody was smiling and wearing name tags, and it was totally irritating, and I was threatened. And here's the thing that's interesting. So let me give you some insight on what may be going on for the person that doesn't want to grow with you. I was really confronted. I was really confronted by what I might learn about myself if I took the same course he took. I was also scared that something would change between us. And so it wasn't that I wasn't interested in growing as a person, it was that I was terrified of the process of doing it, and I was scared of what might get revealed inside of me if I started to change or started to look at myself. So I instead did what a lot of people do. Oh, it's stupid, it's a cult, that's for dumb, I'm not into that kind of thing. Well, what happened is over the course of kind of 3 months, as I was dating Chris and as he was kind of taking these personal development courses, I noticed such a shift in him and such a shift in our relationship that I started to become more and more interested in doing the course too. And so it's important for you to make the invitation. It's important for you to ask if they'd ever want to do it. It's important for you to continue to extend the bridge, but don't ever tell somebody that they have to do it, with one exception. If you've done everything that you possibly can to improve yourself, and you're with somebody that's behaving in a way that's destructive, or that is degrading you, or that is crossing boundaries that are personal boundaries or safety boundaries, you are 100% within your right to tell somebody that in order to be in the relationship with you, they have to do work on those particular issues. Because that's no longer about personal development, it's about the development of your relationship together. So if somebody says no when they're crossing boundaries or when there's something about how they're treating you that doesn't work for you, then you need to get out of the relationship. Because it's no longer about somebody growing with you, it's about you being in a relationship with somebody who is actively doing things to hurt you, to cross boundaries, to make you miserable, and they have zero respect for you because they are not willing to address it. So again, personal development is personal. You can't make somebody change. You need to focus on what you're doing, but make sure you share your journey. Make sure you continue to make the invitation. Don't punish the person when they say no, But if boundaries start to get crossed, if they start to be abusive or destructive or annoying, I mean, Chris, for example, also loves to backcountry ski, something I don't really like to do. So I support him in going, but I don't participate. If I were the kind of person that wouldn't allow him to do it, that was snarky whenever he did it, that would be crossing a line. Then he is allowed to make requests. So remember, personal development is about you personally growing. And the cool thing about personally growing is that as you grow, if you're in the right relationship, eventually the person will come around and want to grow with you. They'll be supportive of what you're doing. That's how they're growing. But when it becomes a situation where you're with somebody that's destructive about what you're doing, that's a major red flag that you need to deal with. I don't believe in toxic positivity. I don't believe that you just put a positive spin on things and things will disappear and be fine. That's not how the world works. There are very real challenges that you may be facing. You may be facing abuse, violence. You may be up against structural and systematic racism and bias and discrimination. You may be facing extreme poverty. You may be facing all kinds of very real and traumatic things in your life. Simply putting a positive spin on things will not change those very real obstacles. What it changes is you. When you change how you look at things, it changes your ability to deal with the things in your life. It changes your ability to face hard things, and it gives you the courage and the confidence and the resilience and the stamina to chip away at these large obstacles or these past experiences that created trauma or negative self-talk. It's going to give you the ability to take the action that you need. And so when you hear me talk about mindset, I want you to understand this doesn't make things disappear. It actually empowers you to be your greatest self, to face the stuff that's very difficult. Because confidence, courage, resilience, these are all things that are inside you. And you don't build this stuff in the high moments. You build your confidence and your courage and your resilience in the low moments. It's like steel. It's forged in the fire of your life. And so even in those moments where you feel like life is punching you in the face and you just want to give up and you have that I can't handle this anymore and why does this keep happening to me? I am telling you, do not give up, because you are building your inner strength every step of the way through these experiences that you're facing in your life. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying you deserve it. I'm saying you have the power within you to face whatever you're dealing with, to find your strength, and to actually change yourself and the situation and the trajectory that you're on for the better. I think it wasn't until I discovered the high five habit that I profoundly realized how much self-hatred I was dealing with. And
despite everything else, yeah.
Well, and this I think is a really big piece of the power of this. Especially if you're somebody who's achievement oriented, and everybody that listens to this podcast feels a big calling and wants to do more in the world and make a bigger difference and a bigger impact. There's a real danger that's very common, Jay, that you start to marry, or you've always married, being worthy or lovable with what you're doing and what you're achieving. And it works both ways in terms of if you don't have the number on the scale, it means, again, the dust on the mirror. You are not worthy because you haven't achieved it yet. And for those of us that have achieved some things that we've set out to do, what happens is you find that as soon as you achieve the thing, you actually need to do something else.
Bigger,
better, because it was a thing that you achieved that made you lovable or worthy. And the real trick, and this is everything, is being able to know and feel in your bones that you are lovable and worthy just because you're breathing. And that was a huge breakthrough for me.
Yeah.
And so, no, I never celebrated, because I think I was so married to this idea that unless I'm doing or winning or achieving, and it happens so subtly when you're little, because you start to get so much positive praise when you get a good grade, or when you do something at school, or when you make your mates laugh, or whatever it might be, that you start to go, oh, That's what love feels like. Oh, if I do that. And so you outsource love and validation to outside things. And I'm here to tell you, we all got to learn how to bring it back home and anchor the validation and love that you need where you are right now every single day. And it's only in discovering this that I had to confront just how much I was beating myself up, just how much I was tearing myself down, and how I was chasing these things. Because what I actually wanted was to feel loved. Like if you ask yourself, okay, great, you want to make $1 million. Why? There's a feeling that you're looking for from that. And if you can start to work on bringing that feeling into your day-to-day life for yourself, it changes the way that you go about achieving things. Like I didn't even enjoy half the stuff that I did because I was constantly maniacally focused on the things that weren't working rather than the 100 things that were. And the same is true with everybody's day. You don't even know the number of amazing things you do every day. You feed the dog, high five. You got the kids to school, high five. You read 10 pages of the book, high five. You said a nice thing to a stranger, high five. You got something done at work, high five. You got through 70% of your inbox, high five. Instead, you focus and ruminate on the one thing you didn't get to, and then you use that as evidence, again, dust on the mirror, to see a human being that's not measuring up and never will, and all that stuff their stupid 4th grade teacher said to you must be true, dust on the mirror. No, you need to interrupt this. Period.
How do I rebuild my relationship with myself when starting from ground zero?
So, Mel, this is a pretty broad, expansive question. And so I thought maybe we would talk about this and then we would narrow down into specifically what we're talking about. So starting from ground zero might mean, hey, I had a traumatic event happen to me, or maybe my life is changing. Maybe I'm reaching a point in my life where I need to do something different. I'm learning that everything I've done to make me happy or fulfilled or satisfied isn't working. So for Federico, where do we even start? What do we talk about?
You actually start the exact same place we all have to start. Every morning in the mirror. Every single morning in the mirror. You see, the most important relationship that you have in life is the one you have with yourself. It is the foundation of every relationship that you have. It's the foundation of how you experience life. And what we're going to punch a hole through today is the fact that every single human being has a disgusting, ugly, self-destructive habit that nobody is talking about that is part of your morning routine.
Yeah.
And here's the habit. Frederico and everybody on the planet currently stands in front of the mirror as they brush their teeth. Hopefully you're brushing your teeth and wiping that gunk out of your mouth, right? So we get rid of the dragon breath. But as you're doing that, you're doing one of two things. Every human being does this. You either beat the daylights out of yourself and you focus on all the stuff you need to fix, the things you hate, the parts of yourself you can't stand. And that's the good news, because the majority of people are doing the other thing. This is sad. The majority of people cannot even look at themselves in the mirror because they are disgusted or they are disappointed or they don't like how long they've let themselves go. And so every morning, part of your morning routine right now, and this goes so down to the core of what's not working and what you can easily flip and change. Because if you stand in front of the mirror and you can't even look at yourself, that is a habit of self-rejection that gets repeated every single day. You are not even secure enough with yourself and accepting enough of yourself to look at the mirror and see, holy cow, because here's the other thing I want everyone to understand right now. We're going to explain the high five habit, but here's the first breakthrough. You're either, be honest with yourself, which do you do? Do you not look in the mirror, or do you focus on the things that you need to fix?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do look in the mirror, and yeah, there's certainly, I'm going through the day, I'm like thinking how I could have done things differently, what I need to do the next day. Yeah, so I do look in the mirror.
Okay.
Yeah, I tend to avoid looking in the mirror. Yeah. Why is that?
You tell me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, think about it. Why do you think you don't look in the mirror?
I've never thought that it was a necessity to gaze upon myself. I'm sure I glance there's a picture of me in the mirror, but it becomes second nature in a way.
Yes.
And so I don't beat myself up so much. I mean, that's a different sort of story that we tell ourselves. But I've never thought about the power of looking in the mirror and how that might actually benefit me.
Well, I want you to consider it's not a reflection. There are 2 human beings in the bathroom with you every morning. There's you.
And my daughter, she's always
So now there's 4.
bothering me in the bathroom.
Or the dog or whatever, or there's 2 human beings.
Right.
There's you, and there's a human being in the mirror. And the human being in the mirror is really trying. And they are in need of your support. And they are in need of your encouragement. And they need you to wake up and to see them, and they need you to stop beating them up, and they need some encouragement. And this is a really deep thing. And it begins every morning by simply taking a moment and being with the human being in the mirror, which I think represents your soul, your spirit, your potential. For people that, kind of like the inner child work and that stuff, it represents the person inside you that's still trying to heal. And if you begin your day every day by not looking in the mirror or by picking apart the things you don't like, 91% of women do not like how they look.
Wow.
50% of people cannot look in the mirror. And what you just said is exactly right. Most of us, it's so casual, spend that moment drifting into the day where we start to think about all the things we need to do. Or, if you're like a lot of us, you're already pile driving yourself going, I got up too late and I got to answer that email and I didn't get this done and and then you catch yourself in the mirror. And you then start, oh my God, I look like crap and I got to be on a Zoom call in 8 minutes and I haven't walked the dog yet. And the pile driving begins.
Yes.
You guys know that once your attitude goes negative, it's going to continue to take you down. And so first things first, we got to break the habit of self-rejection. And we need to create a new habit of partnership, trust, encouragement, compassion, connection to self. Because if we can start to help you every morning to start your day with a little bit of partnership and compassion with yourself, if you can build the ability to like yourself, even if you're not where you want to be in life, it won't matter if other people don't like you, because that can't change the fact that you like yourself. And so this isn't about being a narcissistic asshole. This is not about being a jerk. This is not about being selfish. This is not about being some cocky, overconfident. This is about compassion. This is about support. This is about your most fundamental, profound needs. Love people, use things. That's your book. None of us know how to love ourselves. And it begins every morning with this new habit I want you to create that I created during a terrible moment in my life called the high five habit. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.